But we're going to go through the KEPs real quick. So let's see if I can share my screen. The right window, hold on. Yeah, get the right window here. Okay, all right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Replace this with KEPs. And I have this handy link here for list of KEPs.
Yeah, presenting.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it takes 3 of us here to run Zoom to get it presented on our screen. Okay, let's see. SIG API Machinery KEP PRs. Looks like there's a number that I haven't looked at. Should we just go through the list from the top and yeah, actually let's just do that. I'll open them all up and take a look. Okay, yes, it does work. Of course, add a KEP for controller manager config. Doesn't consume the config file currently. Support. Yeah, that seems somewhat important. It seems important and good. So I think what we should do is figure out who's going to review this. I don't want to repeat.
Stefan's been watching these polls go through for other areas, right? This is all part of that component configuration stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too scared about making controller manager do this. Well, I'm a little scared because how do you get all the controller managers to agree? Yeah.
It's no worse than trying to get them to agree on flags.
Possibly, like you could like if you're, I guess a config file. Well, if you get your config file from API server, like via a config map, then you have to change one place instead of changing 3 places, which is maybe better, but also maybe scarier. But you say Stefan is?
Yeah, I also looked at it already. There was this big question about API versions per controller, or just one big one for all controllers, and it's not addressed yet in this KEP, but it has to.
Per controller.
This was where he was splitting everything out into its own separate serializable API type, right?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds like something that I'm interested in, so maybe I should glance at that.
That's a similar approach that we did for admission stuff, where you can have an admission config file with just a big list of individual plugin configs. In admission config, I think it was the name of the admission plugin mapped to the config struct or the config file. Was the controller manager still proposing a sort of bucket of typed configs, or did it put them in a map?
That was my understanding, bucket, but it's not in this KEP.
Yeah,
Okay.
The thing I want to understand is how we're gonna deal with the lock. Right now, we take a global lock if we're mixing and matching which controllers are running, and yeah, so I want to look at how that will interact. Okay, let's see. Mutating webhook recall details.
This is rewriting the paragraph that hand waved over how to deal with ordering.
I see.
And
the best idea we've come up with so far is to run everything twice, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The only good part about that idea is that it's better than the other ones that we thought of.
There is a sentence at the end that says, if we run into compelling use cases that require like more details, we could enhance the response from the webhook to like give us information about run me again if some field selector thing, hand wave. The fact that all the use cases we have today would be covered by a run them one more time makes me think that we probably won't get there, at least for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't looked at this. Who do you want to? Who would you like to look at this, Jordan?
David and I chatted about it. I don't know who is interested or wants to be involved.
I'm interested, but I lack time at the moment.
I'm interested.
There's an API that'd be worth you just reading.
So,
yeah, it looks pretty short. So
the gist is we should be able to do this for all webhooks. The fact that we can't is because there are bugs in some webhooks today. So V1 Beta 1 will be opt-in, but my goal is to make this opt-in only for V1 Beta 1. And once webhooks go to stable, this should just be part of getting called as a webhook. You should be prepared to be idempotent in your mutation.
And more specifically, the field is required to be set a certain way in V1.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and assign myself, David. If you get to it first, feel free to not block on me.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this the CAP deadline last week was really intense. So I think one thing we can think about is getting more reviewers, so that we're in more reviewers, and like if we could like rate limit or spread out these caps and not group them all together in one bunch.
Yeah, Stefan had his ready for review about a month ahead of time, which was fantastic. That's the only reason we were able to get through some of those.
Yeah, but just opening them may not be enough if nobody looks at them. So we need to be better at looking at them, I think. I need to be better at looking at them.
So this is, we're close to having, it's still marked as, I think, proposed, not implementable, of course. And the two main things that are missing is we don't have, this is for the scale targets. So
yeah.
The cap itself is it needs this, and then it needs some test coverage. Our current thinking is to send out a little survey to some people to try and get some more data on scale needs. So I'll send something in the Slack channel later today, and if anybody would like to themselves or knows somebody who has good CRD use cases, please try and get that survey filled out, and we'll make use of that.
Okay. It looks like this has had a lot of feedback and comments on it. Is it ready for approval? It sounds like you want to do some more work.
We want to do some more work to actually pick the numbers. We're not sure the numbers we're recommending there. I think the format is what we would like to do, which is basically very much in line with what we do with native types, and Hawaii is gathering some more current status numbers that we'd like to fill in before we have to approve it.
Okay. I will drop this for now, and you know where to find me.
Yeah, I will make noise when I think it's ready for review.
Okay. Proposal with priority, but assured concurrency and fairness. Is this?
We've had several of these.
Yeah. How is this different than?
Maybe it's stale.
Is it stale? No, maybe. Yeah, maybe it's stale. I feel like maybe it's stale.
3 days ago.
It's what, about a month old?
Yeah, it was opened a month ago, but
The latest is 3 days ago, 2 days ago.
Oh, okay. Mike is saying it's got a more advanced design. Okay. So I don't have time to understand this at the moment. And Mike knows where to find me when you're ready for another look. Let's see. This one apparently I've looked at, the cap for serializing the same object multiple times.
I hadn't looked at that in a long while. How did the test aspects of this get updated?
Let's see, where did we leave this off? For those of you playing along, if you haven't looked at this, the basic idea is to keep a cache of the serialized form of objects so the API server doesn't spend a lot of time like repeatedly reserializing the same object.
And there were, at one point in time, someone suggested the smart object proposal from a long time ago as a potential means of doing it.
Yeah, it seems like I think I know Wojciech was out of office for a week or two, so he had a example PR which I left some comments on, and I think where we left it is I was like, it seems like most of the benefit was on watchers. When you get an object, it makes sense to like serialize it once before sending it to all watchers. So I wondered if maybe that would give us like 90% of the benefit with less complexity.
Okay.
And I think he was looking into that still. Declarative field manager. I'm just going to open up everything else. Of course, now I can't click on it. Declarative field manager. Is Antoine? No, Antoine is dying today.
Yeah, we got a now working implementation. We had a weird issue with decoding the YAML because ints were floats and floats were ints. Somehow fixed now. You can look into the implementation. I'm still unsure. I'm waiting for end-to-end to look into it.
Okay.
But we still need API review for the cap, at least. As far as I know.
Okay. Is it ready for a API review right now?
I think so, yeah.
It's pending, yeah.
Jordan, do you want to look at it? Or do we have enough?
I can. It's probably behind the things that are currently in my queue. The main, I think I'd ask one question about it. This is adding a write-only field to the API, which is a little weird. So I hadn't had time to think about like what that would mean.
Kevin, is it okay if this doesn't get looked at this week?
I got no hurries. We just want to. We need I think we need this for beta, or to get out of beta blocking. So it's on our list, and
okay.
I think Antoine knows more. We got our next week, I think.
I don't want to spend all my time reviewing caps, but maybe I don't have a choice. Okay.
It wasn't clear to me why it was required for beta. This seemed like a nicety over passing it via a flag. Like this seemed like something that could be introduced while it was in beta. Am I misunderstanding that?
Probably, yeah. I don't really remember why we said this is beta blocking, so I would have to ask.
Okay.
I think Jenny is in here. Maybe she knows.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll get to it. I don't want to promise too much. I'll try. Add an HA solution to the storage migrator KEP.
This will be a requirement before we can GA the storage migrator. But this KEP is it's making the storage migrator not doing anything until all the HA API server has agreed on the storage version. But the solution in this cap is very specific to the storage migrator, and we believe it's a common problem in our API HA setup. So I don't think we need to look at this cap now. I'll reach out if we have a better solution on each other.
Right. Thank you. Raw proposal for dry run authorization. Yeah, Antoine talked to me a little bit. Like the basic problem, as I understand it, is the system that the system that like you want some sort of pre-submit system to check your files when they're checked into a Git repo or whatever, but you don't want that system to necessarily be able to push those files or have the permission to actually make production changes. So the idea was a specific authorization bit to permit just dry run requests. I think I wasn't personally super sold on that. I know, Jordan, did you look at this too?
Yeah, we talked about it some. I don't think I'm in favor of this for several reasons, actually. Like anything that makes dry run behave differently than the actual run, to me, seems like it is counter to the point of dry run.
Yeah.
Like if dry run gives me a thumbs up, but then submitting it without dry run and all else remaining equal, like forbids me, that seems very strange. Dry run is also limited to a single request. So in the simplest case where you had a manifest that like created a namespace and then created some stuff inside the namespace.
Yeah, it doesn't help that.
Dry run would give you a thumbs up on the namespace and then fail on all the other creates because the namespace didn't exist. And it's also like exercising CI against production with dry run is not a use case I've seen. CI typically operates on an actual cluster where it can actually exercise things.
I think, that last one is mostly what I was thinking. I think maybe, maybe I'll chat with Antoine when he gets back and we can see if there's some other way to solve this problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Implementation part, priority and fairness for API server requests. This looks like something else. Oh, is this is I think this is maybe superseded by the one that we did merge. Yeah. Okay, so I think that one's probably superseded. Retrospective KEP. I left comments on this. Don't know if it got. Yeah, so it looks like there's unresolved comments on this one. API server authentication to webhooks. Oh, this is from a while ago. Okay.
Yeah, that I don't think that needs attention right now. The other things are probably higher priority.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. All right. That was everything. Oh, thank you to whoever took notes. Looks like I have some follow-up work to do. That wasn't my intention when I suggested going through the CAPs. Anyone have anything else to discuss while the whole group is assembled? No, all right. I canceled us for. Oh no, wait. That wasn't today's notes. That was several weeks ago. Haha, I fooled myself. Let's try that again on the right day. I'm just assuming that we're going to cancel next week because KubeCon, or 2 weeks from now, rather. So there is a deep dive session there. So want to talk API machinery and you're there, come see that. I think that's going to be David and myself. Yeah.
Hey, Daniel. It's Andrew here. Do you actually mind if we talk briefly about the leader election cap that I opened for the Kube Controller Manager to Cloud Controller Manager migration?
Yeah. This is the controller locking.
Yeah. So I'll give a bit of context for folks who haven't seen it.
Did that not show up in our list? Is that not tagged?
No, because I put it under the Cloud Provider SIG. But yeah, you're right.
API Machinery might be a better SIG to look at that actually.
Yeah, I'll update it. But yeah, to give a little context there, we propose an idea to have a shared leader election resource between the Kube Controller Manager and the Cloud Controller Manager, and we would group all the cloud-specific controllers into a leader resource called Cloud Controller Manager, and that allows us to migrate more smoothly the cloud controllers between the two components for HA clusters. But there are some implications around how to handle, how the components should handle losing leader election, because right now I think most components just panic if they lose the election. But if you lose the cloud election, then should you panic or should you do nothing? So Daniel, you mentioned that the complexity might not be worth it, and I'm totally okay with just saying, here's a page that documents how to migrate, even though it might be a little bit more complex, but if we're not adding that complexity to the components.
Yeah, that's right. I gave a sequence of steps where you could do this manually. Yeah, I agree. It's a little onerous. We could maybe write some sort of wrapper that automated it. I don't know. I guess the direction I was hoping to take the controller locking in is that each controller gets its own lock, or at least as an option. This would let us have more efficient resource usage, at least in some scenarios. It also, it's also like better redundancy characteristics. Like if one of your controller manager fails, like you don't lose all of your controllers, you just lose some of them. The other thing I was thinking about the shutdown. Like if you lose the lock, how do you fix that problem? I've been toying with the idea of maybe we can have a like an emission control plugin that is like a lock assertion checker. So like every time you send it, like the controller has some lock somewhere, and it includes along with its request a what have I been calling it? Like some sort of attestation that's like I'm making this change and I hold this lock, and if I don't actually hold this lock, then I want you to abort this change. And we can have a plugin which notices these things, looks at the resource that the controller asserts it has locked, and like fails the request if that lock has been invalidated. This would be like an extra layer of protection to make sure that if the controller loses its lock, even if it fails to shut down properly, it still can't make changes based on this invalid lock.
Okay, that seems like a separable problem.
No, it's two problems, but I think it like especially if we're talking about some of the controllers losing their lock, which is possible in this, like we need to figure out something. I think everything I just described can be done with today's tools, with one exception, which is there's no way in a delete request to add some sort of data that would get threaded to, like you can't thread arbitrary data in a delete request to admission control plugins. Because like with a post or a put, you can include an annotation, but with a delete, there's no, like you can't mutate and delete. That's not a thing. You can't pass a random query parameter. So I'm not sure how that would work.
I'm pretty sure we already have a way to pass delete options, but
we have delete options, but you can't. We'd have to like add. We'd have to specifically add an option. Which is maybe okay. Maybe that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should try to read the cap. I wasn't expecting that to come out of a cap about trying to allow for transferring particular.
I don't think that's part of this cap. This cap is talking about transferring leader election.
That's what I would have expected with like a two-stage lock, just like you would do
Yeah. It's a two-stage lock. It's just I'm thinking about generalizing. I don't think I object to the two-phase lock in the KEP, as long as I don't want us to end up with a system where we add a phase every time we move everything. So like I don't want like 3, 4, 5 phase locks. If we end up with a system where it's always a two-phase lock, I think that's fine.
You only need to have it exist as long as you're trying to tolerate both, right? So if you get to a point where everything has its own lock, then the next release you can stop acquiring the first lock.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe the sort of general way to do this is to just give the controller like a primary and secondary lock, like as like a flag, and then you can have if you can programmatically determine what those locks are, then that's enough to like move arbitrary sets of controllers into their own process.
Well, I haven't looked at the latest version of the KEP, but that was my memory of what the original version of the KEP said.
It's got like I think it's got like a specific cloud and regular controller lock.
I thought my memory when we originally discussed this was that the inner lock took a list of controllers that it was locking.
Yeah, so that might be an implementation detail, because in the end, like what controllers go into the secondary lock, we can kind of tweak that later. I think the biggest blocking thing is if you have a secondary lock and you lose it, do you like what's the stop callback for that?
I think short of what Daniel suggested, and I think what Daniel suggested is definitely an improvement, but short of what Daniel said, I think it still needs to be the current suicide behavior.
Yeah.
Which is a little unfortunate, but not the end of the world.
It's not great, but it's not awful either, right? Like the lease, you'll compete on it again and see what you get.
Yeah. I mean, I do think Daniel's suggestion of, sort of specifying on all rights that you believe you own the lock is a superior solution, but I think we can make a lot of headway before we get to that.
Yeah, I think it's actually useful in a lot of other circumstances too. Like it might just be a useful tool to have in your toolbox as somebody who writes like operators or whatever.
Yeah. And I also just think that it'll allow better load balancing in HA scenarios.
Yeah. Okay. Andrew, is that enough detail for you to push that KEP forward?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I just left a couple comments, which now I think you can go and answer, and then we'll be good.
Yeah, I might follow up and bug you with a few more questions, but I think I get the gist of it. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. All right. Anyone else? All right. Thank you all for coming, and Joe recorded this, so we'll get that published, and hopefully next time we won't have the technical difficulty starting here. Yeah, so thanks.